Welcome to Crypto Kanoon. Today we have a very special interview, and the timing of this interview is quite special. Why? Because the recent fiasco, right? We have heard recently that WhatsApp is forcing people to sign a privacy agreement, and there are so many points which are quite worrying, and quite worrying because all your private, your data, your privacy is at stake, and not just in India, but in the entire world, it's a hot topic right now that where is my privacy? Is privacy a luxury or a necessity? And after Elon Musk, who tweeted about, Elon Musk tweeted that people should actually go to a decentralized messaging applications. There has been a much more awareness about their rights, about people who really want to use a decentralized messaging application, and I'm sure a lot of people are searching for various options on Google, that what are the best decentralized messaging application. So while we were also doing it, we got to know about Silo, and today we have this. The timing is such that we invited him, we requested him to come forward and share his product, his company, his vision, and how he is going to. He thinks that the future of decentralized messaging application has a future, and today we have with us Dorian. So let me give you a little bit brief idea about Silo. Silo has close to 350,000 people in 80 country using its smart wallet and messenger. So basically, just to give you a brief idea, uh, the messaging application is a decentralized messaging application. Along with that, you can also have a crypto wallet in that, and through that wallet, you can also pay to various services. In fact, in June 2020, there was a news that 4,000 vending machines, Coke vending machines in Australia and New Zealand, I think, where you can use Silo application and you can pay through Silo wallet, and which is also a messenger, which is also a decentralized messaging application as well. So to know more about this, I have certain set of questions which I'm going to ask Dorian. So, but before I proceed, I would like to welcome Dorian and just want to ask him how is he and how is New Zealand. So welcome Dorian. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate the time. Yeah, looking forward to chatting. I'm going good. I'd say I'm in one of the fortunate places of the world right now. Where, it seems like we're heading towards towards winning this COVID thing, but I won't speak too early.
Yeah, in news when we were tracking about the COVID situation around the world, I think New Zealand was best placed, and for quite a long time New Zealand didn't had a single case in the country. So that was quite surprising, and I think kudos to the entire management in New Zealand, the entire government who were able to control this situation.
Yeah. I think it's more the result of a fortunate situation. We've got a small population. We're an isolated island nation. So we had a few natural things going for us, but I think the country pulled together really well and worked in the lockdowns. Feeling very fortunate on my front.
Okay. So Silo, so Dorian, at this point of time, I want to ask the first question is that what is Silo and what it exactly it does, and in a simplified way. I mean, to me, who doesn't know anything about Silo, just tell me what is Silo and how it is solving the problem of a centralized messaging application and the privacy issues which we are facing right now.
Absolutely. So there's two key components to the Silo project. One is the Silo protocol, which is a decentralized communications protocol by itself. The second is the Silo Smart Wallet, which is the product or app that we've built on the protocol. So at its most basic form, think of Silo as a decentralized WeChat, a messenger with value-added activities that's been built from the ground up using decentralized technologies so that us as a company, we don't control communication flows, data points, and have visibility on user activities to anywhere near the same extent as a centralized messenger, your Facebooks of the world, your WhatsApps of the world. Not from the point of view that we're not going to look at it. We've actually designed this thing architecturally to give user privacy and user autonomy from their data points.
Okay. So Dorian, when we talk about decentralized messaging applications and centralized messaging applications, like we have WhatsApp and other quite famous centralized applications. What is the difference? I mean, the entire data gets stored on a centralized server on a centralized messaging application, and on a decentralized messaging application, nobody can access my chat, nobody can access my data, my images. Is that what we mean with decentralized applications?
Yeah, so the key piece is the data flow. So, I mean, in any mainstream centralized messenger you're using, you're not actually speaking with the person you're talking to. You're talking to a central server and then pulling those communications from that server. In the context of Silo with a decentralized setup, we've got one device talking directly to another device. We just rip out that central layer. So communications go direct point to point to these devices so that only the users involved in the conversation have a record of those communications at each endpoint. And it's designed from a technology level as opposed to a policy level from that point of view, which means that it can't be changed moving forward or changed with the flick of a switch or a terms of service policy change.
Okay. So we recently know that the fiasco which was happening is happening around WhatsApp privacy policy, and it's literally they are pushing people to sign it. Either you sign it or you get out. And most of the people, they admit that they are addicted. Now they cannot live without WhatsApp. They cannot imagine life without a centralized application. So what is the real threat when people sign or compromise with their privacy, or they sign the agreement without even reading the points which are mentioned in that agreement? So what is the real threat to people, and why you think that decentralized messaging application is the future or is the solution to the existing problem?
Yeah, so I'll break that down into two pieces. So a key focus of ours is in what we call developing Web3. Web 1 and Web 2, the way we saw that develop is that was based on capabilities. So the Generation 1 and Generation 2 platforms, what they've done is they've created these amazing functionalities and capabilities. You can now speak with someone on the other side of the world. But the issue was that they created these in such a way that it created a lot of advantage for the platform and extracted everything from the user. You have to give up a lot to use these platforms. What we've been focused on with Web3 is, cool, we've got these capabilities. Now what we need to do is focus on how these technologies are being developed so that we can actually communicate online in the context that we feel safe, similar to an offline scenario. And that is very, very fundamental, we think, for development and moving forward. If your kids are getting on these technologies for the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, would we be comfortable with the current model and the current setup? So we've very much approached it from that point of view. Its capabilities are great. We had those. Now we need to look at how we're creating these technologies and what's going to future-proof them. Particularly when you start to look into finance and value transfer, with what's happening in the market and people starting to play with cryptocurrencies and send them back and forth, integrating financial methods into services that you're kind of a bit worried about what they're doing with your information, your data, becomes quite scary. So I think people need that confidence to be able to move into this space and start bringing value transfer into their online communications in a big way from that standpoint.
So my next question, similar to this, is that, for any startup or any, when you build something, there is some inspiration. So what was your inspiration behind creating Silo? Was there any incident where you faced in your life about a data threat or a privacy infringement you faced? What was the inspiration behind it?
Interestingly enough, it was helping other companies market through Facebook. So when I finished university, I started up a digital consultancy, and I was helping small, medium-sized businesses actually market through services like Facebook and Twitter. Through that process, I got a really deep insight into just how much information was being captured unbeknownst to the user, and just how it was being used, and how much you could really granularize that down. It got to the point where if I pulled my data report, Facebook knew more about me than I knew about myself, objectively. So I kind of, that was the trigger point. And when I saw that, I was like, look, there must be a better way to do this. There must be a way for my smartphone to talk to your smartphone without giving all of this information away and being treated like a product. So that was sort of the genesis point to build Silo. And I linked up with a couple of guys I knew were quite enthusiastic about technology, and that was the sort of inception point when we went away and founded Silo.
I like this idea. In fact, it reminds me of these series which I recently watched, Social Dilemma. In that also, people were ex-employees of various social media giants, and they were talking about it, and they were talking about privacy, and they were talking about the ill effects of social media at this point of time. So my next question is that obviously, as I said in the previously, that people are addicted to centralized applications. Let's admit it. And at this point of time, you as a decentralized messaging application is trying to push its product as a solution. So do you think that this whole decentralized messaging application is scalable in future? And what are the numbers right now? How many users you have at this point of time, and how you are seeing your platform growing, maybe quarter by quarter? So is there a real growth happening in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think every event, it seems like almost once or twice a year, we have an event like the Social Dilemma coming out. We have an event like you've just mentioned with them now forcing their terms of service publicly on people to continue using services. And each wave of this stuff pushes the consciousness more into the mainstream around privacy awareness. Every year that goes along now, there's fewer people I talk to that say that people don't care about privacy thing. I think just yesterday I saw Jack Dorsey of Twitter tweet that Signal was now the #1 downloaded app on the app stores. It's definitely pushing more and more consciousness. And our focus very much it's on that bridge. So we deal in decentralized technologies with cryptocurrency. And that's sort of 5% adopted. There's the 95% of the population that's still using mainstream messengers. And that's who we're targeting. What we're trying to do is create an experience as close as possible to a mainstream centralized messenger, because I think that's the key barrier. It's experience. You've got those, once you get it to the point where you can pick up one app and it's got exactly the same functionality as the other app, but you're not giving away all of this information, all of this data. You have your own data sovereignty. It's going to become a no-brainer. So we've been very, very focused on meaning that users don't have to give up anything in terms of experience to have the benefits of decentralization and privacy from that standpoint. So that's the real key tipping point, we think, and we're seeing more and more people come on, but it's happening in pockets. So at the moment, we're over 400,000 users now, quite a broad spread of countries, but what we're seeing is it's happening in kind of clicks or pockets, where people are jumping on and personally referring their friends onto the service, going, hey, look, this is a great tool to use. But there are two key prongs to it. It's not just the messenger, it's the messenger and the wallet.
What's messenger? So I want to tell my audience once again that 400,000 people are already using Silo Messenger. And not just a messenger, it's not just a messenger. So understand, it's a decentralized messenger where your privacy is safe, your data is safe, your individuality is safe, your pictures are safe, your videos are safe. And with that application, you can also, use it as a crypto wallet as well. And from that wallet, you can transfer, you can spend. If suppose you would have been in Australia, you would have actually bought Coca-Cola. And in future also, Silo is tying up with a lot of retail chains and a lot of, because ultimately Silo wants that the retail customer should be able to message, interact, communicate, and pay as well. Am I right, Dorian, when I say that?
100%. So it's sending currency or digital assets. It's the same as sending a message. So we've tried to make it as seamless as possible.
Okay, amazing. So now I want to ask you this very important question that we recently heard about the, through your application, we can buy Coke, right, in Australia. So since then, since June 2020, has there been more development on that aspect? Have you been able to do more tie-ups with more retail chains? And what about your plans to expand to different other countries and tie up with other retail giants in different part of the world? Is there any progress on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, and you could probably think of the Coke BTC campaign as a bit of a test So, you know, we had the relationship with Coca-Cola Amatil and a company called Centrapay, and they had coverage of Australasia. They're the largest Coke distributor in Australasia, and they jumped at the option to let people, you know, actually use their BTC. And that campaign went really, really well. We got great feedback from the customers, the users, and from Coca-Cola on that front. And what they've now done is expressed an interest to go further. That was almost the proof point. So what we now have is the option to go more global with that functionality. So what we're looking at now is where we're going to take that next step in terms of regions, and we might actually look at other product lines for that as well. So long story short, but before the end of the year, you'll see additional functionality roll out in new regions, and we're looking to do that through some key partnerships so that local companies can introduce the functionality to the markets as well. So it's not just us pushing it through.
While I was using Silo app, Dorian, I also found that in that application, not just that I can message, I can use it as a crypto wallet. I can transfer my crypto from that messenger application from Silo. And there was one beautiful aspect which I got to know from your application is that I can also, as a creator, I can create my own GIFs, I can create my own smileys, and then I can put it on auction. So for an artist also, for a creator also, if somebody is good at that, can create their own stuff, and they can, you know, maybe auction it, and if somebody is interested, can pay for that.
Yeah. So later this year, we'll be deploying a marketplace.
Okay.
So like an NFT marketplace is the easiest.
NFT, yeah, that's amazing. And so NFT is the future, as we are all talking about it. So that's amazing.
So actually, where that came from as well was actually following on from the Coke BTC campaign. We've had another corporate express interest in creating a non-fungible that actually represents a product that they have. I can't name the corporate right now, unfortunately, because it's under development, but what they were really interested in was, why don't we just have a digital representation of our product that users can share back and forth, move around, and then redeem at our physical store locations, which is a really cool concept. And with NFTs and the digital asset spectrum, it gives you quite cool functionality. You can build these things, even to the point where you can potentially fluctuate the value during different times of day or days of week or regional jurisdictions based on what the company wants to do with their assets, which is something really cool that we're going to be exploring this year.
So moving ahead, Dorian, are there any plans for India at this point of time? I mean, like you did your tie-ups with Coca-Cola, with Coke in Australia and New Zealand. So are there any developments on the Indian side? Are you planning to have a tie-ups in India?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're focusing on, because we've had quite strong user adoption within India, we're now focusing a lot on addressing the Indian market in a raft of capacities. In terms of the BTC Coke functionality, and we're kind of keeping an eye on the market and the situation with COVID as well, because obviously we're conscious of not encouraging too many people to go out into physical retail outlets. But what we have is the technology ready to go, and I think we'll look at doing that through a local partnership, as I mentioned before, which may introduce other product lines as well, because I think we want to do it slightly different. We don't want to do the same functionality, just extended region by region. We'd like to do something unique with a new product line for each market launch, and then we can kind of bring in the legacy functionality.
Okay. During one thing which goes in my mind is like for a decentralized application, the biggest hurdle at this point of time is that the regulatory hurdles. So suppose there are many countries who don't like decentralized application. They want that, you know, that every application, messaging application or a communication platform should follow the rules of that particular, you know, country. So do you face these challenges? First of all, my question is, and if you do, what are your plans? Because since you know that a platform like yours will definitely face regulatory hurdles, so how you plan to address all these issues?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few questions in there. Obviously, we have the messenger component, but then we've also got the digital asset component, which falls under a different set of regulations. From the wallet point of view, we're a non-custodial wallet. where users hold their own keys. So we're not like an exchange or a Coinbase where we hold custody of funds. So we have a very different set of regulatory hurdles around that, because what we're providing people is a non-custodial wallet that they have complete control over. So us as a company isn't able to access or manipulate or change the assets in that service. So that makes it a lot easier for adoption from the wallet perspective in a whole range of different countries. From the messenger point of view, there's very little restriction. So in terms of adoption on that, obviously the app stores are the key barrier on that side, the Apple or the Google Plays. So we fully kind of go through everything that's required in terms of vetting on that side. But in terms of individual countries, I'm expecting this year in particular, we're going to see some more regulations come out, particularly around the cryptocurrency. Now that we're seeing things like the Ripple SEC suit and bits and pieces. So from our point of view, we're gaining adoption all over the place. If certain regulations put specific policies in place, we'll obviously do everything we can to work within those. But we're in quite an advantageous position because being decentralized, being non-custodial, we're not actually controlling user data, user funds. I mean, things like, the privacy regulations that came out in the UK to kind of protect users, those things aren't really relevant to us because we actually already do that from a technological level. We're not actually capturing that information in that user, so it's safer from the get-go on that side. But regulations it's a constantly moving beast, and we keep an eye on the pulse, and if there's certain things that need to be addressed, we jump on them as quick as we can.
Okay. Point taken. So, Doreen, we recently saw some updates at your platform. So after this Oya update, we want to know what is this Oya update and the latest business integration with Tezos, where you recently announced your business integration of Tezos into your system, and the Oya update. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Oya's it's a name coined by the team here, and that was based. Oya's the god of lightning and rebirth, which we thought was quite appropriate for the release convention. Because the two key things in that release were one, significant performance improvement. So we launched our first version of the decentralized messenger in September 2019. And that was sort of version 1. It was a little bit clunky. The performance was a little suspect. So we've put a year's worth of development and improvements into that, so that we can now sit this next to a centralized messenger and provide an experience that people can genuinely consider picking up on the decentralized side. And then the second key component of the Oya release is the node infrastructure, which was a big development for us. So from a user's point of view, now users can actually contribute to running the network. So think like in a centralized scenario using a Facebook, for example, they run the servers that host the data and provide the resources to the network to communicate. We've launched the ability for users to actually create their own nodes and become part of that decentralized network and build that up around the world. Which is pretty cool functionality. It's something we haven't seen before, and where we're going with that is that we eventually want to bring it to the stage where people will be able to host and run nodes from their individual devices down the line, which is something we're pretty excited about. And that's all going to be tied into an incentivization component. So you can essentially run a node to the Silo network and earn cryptocurrency in return for that computing resource that you put to the network.
Okay. So my next question is, we do have a token, right? What is the utility of this token? How this token will be used? What is the growth plan of this token? And where I can find this token? Are there any various exchanges where it is listed? And obviously my audience will like to know, so is it listed on Binance?
Not Binance, but we're on KuCoin, Gates, and BitBNS.
BitBNS is an Indian exchange, so that's a great news for Indian communities if they are looking forward for. So I want to understand what is this token about, and what is the utility, and how do you see that the token is not, obviously I'm not talking about from the price perspective, but obviously the more token is in use, how it is going to, what are the utilities and how you think that people are going to use more Silo in future?
Yeah, absolutely. So the token is the key component to the layer 2 microservices network that we've launched. So it's going to be fundamental to the node framework that we just launched. So we'll be introducing that during this year, which will let people earn on the incentivization mechanic for running nodes and providing computing resource to the network. And that infrastructure is going to be run on the Silo token. So that'll be staking and earning. And based on the proportions of staking, that gives users the opportunity to have preferential hosting of their nodes for other users to use on the network, which provides more earning potential inversely. So the token's core utility is based around the incentivized node network that we're pushing to market as we speak. We're also going to be introducing the token into the app UX layer for certain aspects. One is what we call social DeFi, where it's actually going to let people create exclusive groups that only people that hold the particular token can access these private groups. We've had a few requests on that side, and we're arranging that launch with a couple of influencers, which is going to be quite interesting.
Okay. So when we can expect this token to be listed on Binance? One more time, I'm asking this question.
Yeah, I guess it's when they come knocking on our door. So no, we get that question a lot. When Binance?
When Binance, and maybe when Coinbase.
Yeah, so we're going through the steps at the moment. So we've got a couple other listing offers along the same level as Gate.
But I think that should not be the focus at this point in time. The focus should be that there should be a real use case of the token, and the token should be able to grow over the period of time and should have a real utility, because there is no point having a token with a zero utility. So ultimately you get exposed. But if your token is having some utility and it is bound to grow in future, it is, so I think that should be more focused to you. And Binance and other exchanges, they run after these. We will run after you in future. You don't have to run for the listing of the token.
Yeah, absolutely. Where we're sitting right now is we've got big plans for it, and as we push that into market, a key piece for us is we've got a very large user base, respectively for other crypto platforms, and what we're looking to do is link in that user usage to token utility to get some really interesting features into the application for users. To make it really interesting and start leveraging, those components like the NFT capabilities to really bring cool, unique functionality to these users, things that some of these centralized platforms would struggle to deliver, where we think, the decentralized tech really becomes an advantage.
Absolutely. So my another question is, like, from a macro perspective, we have seen an amazing bull run in the crypto market, and we've been witnessing it for the past couple of weeks now. So where you think this market is heading, where you think Bitcoin is heading, and what is the real reason behind this bull run? If you can give your inputs from your perspective, that what is the reason behind this bull run? Is it sustainable? And where it is heading in the future?
From my perspective, I think we currently have about 5% of the population in crypto. And what's happening now is it's getting more and more mainstream. I go down to the coffee shop now, and some guy next to me, in the late years of his life, is you hear him talking about it and how he got into it or purchased some Bitcoin. I think there's a lot of momentum behind it if the mainstream continues to get into it. So I think it's two key components. One is you've now got the larger funds starting to allocate portions of their portfolios to crypto assets, which is significant money moving in. And you've also got more and more mainstream people coming in now that they've seen the peak, the crash, and the more progressive peak. People are looking at it as more sustainable and more solid. So a lot more fresh money is coming into the crypto market, I believe, which means that it will be supported and it could keep moving. Like if we look at it from the point of view that over the next 5 years, we're going to go from 5 to 10 or 15% of the population, there's no reason it can't keep moving significantly.
Okay, that's amazing. So one message you want to give to Indian users, to Indian crypto community, one last message you would like to give?
Download an app, get into crypto.
That's amazing. I think it is the important point at this point. Right now, the message is the whole objective of conducting this interview is that you need to understand that privacy is a necessity. It is not a luxury. Try and understand that you cannot sleep at night without opening your whole house open. It's like that. It's as simple as that. When you go to sleep, you close all your doors and windows, and then you feel secure about your this thing, and then you finally go to bed. So it's a similar situation. If you are on a messaging application, and if you are allowed all the centralized authorities to access your data, your files, your videos, your chats, I mean, just imagine how vulnerable you are. The future is definitely going to be the future of decentralized messaging application, and not everybody is going to be good, but there are a couple of good players who are coming up. And what Silo is doing at this point of view is not only about decentralized messaging application. It is, and obviously, if you are in crypto, important is that it's a messaging application plus crypto, and plus in future it will be a marketplace for NFT as well, where you can actually, as an artist or a creator, you can create your stuff. You can find users there, you can find buyers there, you can sell it to them, get paid in crypto, and just be happy. It's as simple as that. And I think Silo is just there, the right product to cater in future, I think. With this thought,
I think the key point in that as well is that right now people look at privacy as a luxury. I think in the years to come, it's just going to become a part of all technology that gets developed in the communication field. People aren't going to put up with what they're putting up with now, and once that experience gets lined up, there's going to be nowhere to go if you're not building privacy first. People are just going to expect it.
Dorian, I also want to have a last view on, is the space really growing? Because since you are there, so you must be aware the number of players who are coming into decentralized application. Are there any big players coming into this space, or is there a real growth happening in this space?
So, I mean, right now we're in another cycle of awareness. Given what's happened over the break, you've now got, it's become a hot topic to talk about privacy again. But the reality is, building decentralized is 10 times harder than building centralized. So it takes a long time to build these core technologies. So for us to get to this stage, it's taken us 6 years to build the fundamental. 6 years to build the fundamental technology up, deliver something, get that experience right, and bring it to market. So the companies that are all starting to build now, it's a long road ahead. It's a long road ahead from that standpoint. We're currently aware of one other project that's built a wallet messenger on decentralized infrastructure that's probably you could consider viably usable, side by side with other centralized. But there's a lot more up-and-coming projects popping up, and of those, we would encourage those guys to touch base with us, because that's the key piece of the protocol. What we Smart Wallet is core technology. Think of it like the engine that we would really encourage others to build applications on top of. So if you want to build a decentralized messenger or communications platform, we've got a protocol sitting here that you can pick up and use to add in messaging, calling, and value transfer without having to build it from the ground up. And that takes half a decade of development that we're looking to start collaborating on.
Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I think with this thought, thank you, Dorian, for this interview and for taking out time out of a busy schedule. And I think
thanks for the time.
I'm sure that the link to the application is all the details about Silo and from where you can get the messenger. Every detail has been given in the description. From there, you can find those links. And in case you want to follow Dorian, we have also given us a Twitter handle and the Twitter handle of Silo as well. So all the details are mentioned in the description. So I think with this thought, Dorian, thanks a lot, and we'll definitely get back to you in future as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you.